The rain hammered the roof like it was trying to drown out the scream building in my chest. I stood there in the kitchen of our cramped Seattle rental, staring at the divorce papers my wife, Lena, had left on the counter before bolting for her sisters in Portland. 3 months pregnant and done with my emotional black hole, as she'd called it. And then the doorbell rang, a ghost in the storm, pulling me back from the edge just as I reached for the whiskey bottle that promised oblivion. It was Silas, my cousin from the wrong side of the family tree, the one we'd all whispered about since he came out at 15 and got shipped off to live with Aunt Clara in Spokane. Soaked to the bone, his blue eyes fierce under that ridiculous leather jacket. He didn't say a word, just dropped his duffel bag and wrapped me in a hug that smelled like wet pine and the faint tang of rebellion. I hadn't seen Silas in years, not since Uncle Ray's funeral back in 18, where he'd shown up with a rainbow pin on his lapel and half the family pretended he was invisible. We were blood, sure, second cousins through my mom's side, but in the Caulfield clan, blood only counted if it ran straight and silent. Lena had always tolerated him during holidays, her tight smiles masking the judgment she'd whisper later. He's family, Holden, but he's, you know. Now, with her gone and the baby on the way, I was unraveling like a cheap sweater, and Silas had driven 5 hours through the Cascades just because I'd left a rambling voicemail at 2 a.m. I can't do this alone. That first night, we didn't talk about the papers or the baby or why Lena's suitcase had vanished like smoke. Silas just cracked open a couple of Rainiers from the fridge. Local brew, crisp and cold like the air off Puget Sound, and we sat on the sagging couch in the living room, the TV flickering some Mariners rerun neither of us watched. The storm outside rattled the windows, but inside, his presence was an anchor. "You look like hell, cuz," he said finally, his voice low and gravelly, the kind that carried stories from dive bars and backroom gigs. "But you're still the Holden who used to build forts in the woods and swear we'd run away to Alaska." I laughed, a rusty sound that hurt my throat. That was kid stuff. Now I'm just a graphic designer pushing pixels for ad agencies, pretending life's a straight line. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a sketch he hadn't finished. Silas had always been the artist in the family, tattoos snaking up his arms like vines, a sketchbook perpetually tucked under his elbow. He'd bounced around, barista in Portland, drummer in a queer punk band in San Francisco, now some freelance illustrator scraping by in Tacoma. Free-spirited, they called it back home in our conservative corner of eastern Washington. Reckless, my dad had grumbled. By morning, the rain had eased to a drizzle, and Silas was already in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like he owned the place. "Fuel up," he said, sliding a plate my way. "We're getting out of this shoebox today." I protested, therapy appointment at noon, calls to Lena's lawyer, but he shot me that look, the one that said arguments were for amateurs. We ended up at Discovery Park, trudging muddy trails under the evergreens, the salt air whipping off the sound. Seattle's like that. Gray skies that press down, but pockets of wild green that remind you the world's still breathing. We talked, halting at first, about Lena's affairs. I'd suspected for months, the late nights at the gallery where she curated exhibits, the way she'd pull away when I tried to touch her. She said I was too closed off, I admitted, kicking a root, like I couldn't feel deep enough. Silas stopped, his boot sinking into the loam. "Bullshit. You're a fortress, Holden. Not closed, guarded. There's a difference." His words hung there, simple but slicing, and for the first time in weeks I felt seen. Not pitted, not fixed. Seen. Days blurred into a rhythm. Silas crashed on the couch, his duffel spilling sketchpads and vinyl records. Everything from Springsteen to Against Me. He dragged me to coffee shops in Capitol Hill, the neighborhood pulsing with rainbow flags and couples holding hands without a second glance. One evening, at a hole in the wall called Lambda Lounge, he introduced me to his world. Drag queens slinging drinks, a jukebox crooning K.D. Lang. I nursed a stout, watching him light up as he bantered with the bartender, a wiry guy named Jax with a septum piercing. "This is Holden," Silas said, slinging an arm around my shoulders. "My cousin, the straight-laced one trying not to bolt." I didn't bolt. Instead, I felt a warmth spread, unfamiliar and electric, like the first sip of something strong on an empty stomach. Silas's laugh was infectious, his hand lingering a beat too long when he passed me a napkin. That night, back home, I dreamed of forests and hands. His hands, tangling in mine, waking with a jolt and a guilt that tasted like ash. Lena called sporadically, her voice clipped over the line. The baby's fine, but us? We're done, Holden. Figure yourself out. Each word was a fresh cut, reopening the wound. Silas would find me after, slumped at the kitchen table, and without asking, he'd pull out his sketchbook. Draw with me, he'd say. We'd scribble, me with my precise lines from years of digital mocks, him with wild strokes that bled emotion. One night, under the yellow glow of the pendant light, our pencils brushed. He looked up, eyes dark and searching. You ever wonder what it'd be like if lines weren't so straight? My heart hammered. All the time, I whispered, the admission slipping out like a confession. His fingers grazed mine, tentative, then sure. We didn't kiss, not then. But in that touch, something shifted. The air thickened with possibility, the kind that scares you because it's real. It built slow, like Seattle's summer creeping in. Mornings running along the Burke-Gilman Trail, sweat slick and breathless, his shoulder bumping mine. Afternoons lost in his stories, of coming out to a father who called him an abomination, of hookups that left him hollow, of the quiet pride in surviving. Family's not blood, Holden, he'd say, echoing the old queer mantra. It's who shows up. And God, he showed up. Cooking stir-fries with whatever was in the fridge, blasting playlists that mixed Johnny Cash with Tegan and Sarah, holding me when the sobs came unbidden. I fell into it, or maybe it fell into me. The first kiss happened on a Tuesday, after a call from my dad. Lena had told him everything, and his verdict was swift. You're embarrassing us, son. Get your head right. I slammed the phone down, chest heaving, and Silas was there, pulling me close on the porch as fog rolled in from the bay. Our lips met, soft at first, testing, then hungry, like we'd both been starving. His stubble rasped against my skin, his hands framing my face with a tenderness that broke me open. I've wanted this since we were kids, he murmured against my mouth. But I waited for you. We didn't rush. No frantic undressing, no Hollywood montage of sheets and sighs. It was kisses stolen over coffee, his head on my chest during late-night movies, the way he traced the veins on my forearm like mapping a river. Romance, raw and unpolished, blooming in the cracks of my crumbling life. For the first time, I felt alive. Not performing straightness for Lena, not burying feelings under work emails. With Silas, I was just Holden, flawed, feeling free. But betrayal has a way of crashing parties. Came via email from my sister Ellie back in Spokane. She'd flown in unannounced, key from Lena still in her purse, and walked in on us one gray afternoon. Silas and I were on the couch, tangled in a lazy embrace, his fingers carting through my hair as we talked baby names. Mine for the kid, his for the life we might build. The door flew open, and there she was, wide-eyed, phone already out, snapping pics before I could untangle. You sick fuck, she spat, voice trembling with that Midwestern piety. Cousin? This is incest. Dad's gonna disown you both. She bolted before Silas could speak, tires screeching into the drizzle. By evening, the family group chat exploded. Accusations of perversion, demands for explanations, my dad's final nail. Don't come home. Ever. Lena called next, hysterical. I knew you were broken, but this? With him? The baby's mine now. Stay away. Climax hit like a freight train. Silas paced the living room, fists clenched, while I sat numb on the floor, divorce papers mocking me from the coffee table. They'll come for you, I said, voice cracking. Paint you as the seducer, the family wrecker. He knelt, cupping my face. Let M. I'm not running, Holden. Not from you. But doubt clawed in visions of court battles over the unborn child. Whispers in boardrooms tanking my freelance gigs. Silas's art shows drying up under boycott. We fought, ugly and necessary. This was a mistake. I hurled, fear masquerading as anger. You're turning me into this. He recoiled, eyes flashing hurt. This? Loving you? That's not a mistake, you coward. That's the truest thing we've got. He grabbed his duffel, stormed out into the night, leaving me with the echo of the door slam and the rain's relentless tattoo. Hours later, or was it minutes? I found him at the park overlook, silhouetted against the city lights smudged by mist. The wind howled off the sound, whipping his jacket like a flag of surrender. I approached slow, heart in my throat. Silas. He turned, face streaked with rain or tears. I couldn't tell. I can't lose you, I said, the words a dam breaking. Not to them, not to fear. You're my family, the one I choose. He searched my eyes, then pulled me close, our foreheads touching. Then fight for it. With me. We stood there, two men against the storm, the world shrinking to the beat of our breaths sinking in the cold. Months later, the dust settled. Not gently, but real. Lena got full custody, a clean break I signed without contest. Her new life in Portland a closed book. The family fractured. Dad and Ellie went radio silent, but Aunt Clara sent postcards from Spokane, quiet notes of, I'm here if you need. Silas and I moved to a tiny craftsman in Ballard, walls echoing with his laughter and my tentative sketches joining his. The baby, our niece now, through Lena's grace, visits on weekends, her chubby fists grabbing Silas's tattoos like treasures. What happened taught me family isn't the blood that binds you in silence, or the vows that fray under weight. It's the hand that reaches through the rain, the voice that says stay, when everything screams run. Silas isn't just my cousin, my lover. He's my chosen north, guiding us through the gray toward whatever sun breaks next. In America, where lines blur and hearts rewrite rules, we build our own kin. And damn if it isn't the most human thing I've ever done.